They came to us with threats wrapped in diplomacy. The Galactic High Council, a body thousands of years old, sent a delegation that hovered above Earth's orbit like it already belonged to them. Their message was clear, direct, and arrogant. Surrender your militaries, dismantle your space fleets, hand over technological sovereignty, or be destroyed. They'd said the same to dozens of species before us. Some complied and became vassals. Others resisted and were never heard from again. To them, we were primitives, a young species that had only recently broken the light barrier, a death-world culture that clawed its way into the stars without guidance or invitation. They called us unstable, volatile, dangerous, and they weren't wrong, but they misunderstood what that meant. They thought volatility was a flaw. It wasn't. It was fuel. Their envoy transmitted a final warning. 10 days to comply. No room for negotiation. No diplomacy. They didn't need to negotiate. They were the ruling species of the galaxy, their fleet unmatched, their doctrine refined by millennia of extermination campaigns. The human ambassador, stationed aboard the UNSS Dauntless, said nothing for a full minute. Then he leaned forward and spoke a phrase that history would remember longer than any war. "You want war? We'll give you a war." That single sentence echoed through 100 systems within hours. Some laughed. Some dismissed it as human bravado. But a few species, those who understood the concept of Earth as a death world, stayed quiet. They understood the difference between a bluff and a promise. The Valari Dominion, the Council's military arm, didn't wait for the deadline. They mobilized a rapid strike fleet and jumped straight into Sol's outer colonies, targeting the agrarian world of New Madrid. They expected a ceremonial defense at best, local militia, maybe some outdated drones. What they found instead was the beginning of the end. Orbital defense arrays, thought inactive, opened fire with magnetically accelerated slugs. Automated point defense turrets intercepted incoming torpedoes before they cleared Valari bays. Atmospheric fighters, piloted and AI-linked, launched from subterranean hangars. Human ground forces didn't fall back. They advanced, encasing themselves in exo-armor optimized for extreme gravitational variance. Within the first hour, the Valari lost 4 destroyers and 2 troop carriers. They called for reinforcements. None arrived. Their comms had been hijacked and rerouted into an infinite feedback loop. The human defense AI was learning in real time, mapping weaknesses, tracking fleet formations, intercepting encrypted protocols with almost malicious precision. When the last Valari ship tried to retreat, its FTL drive failed mid-jump. The resulting explosion vaporized half the orbit. The footage leaked. The galaxy watched. Up until that moment, the belief was that humans were reckless, uncoordinated, backward in fleet strategy. That belief didn't survive the Battle of New Madrid. Still, the Council assured its member species that this was an isolated incident. Luck, a fluke. They were wrong. We didn't cheer our victory. We mobilized. Earth's war complexes, dormant since the last planetary war, came alive. AI-run foundries began printing modular gunships in lunar orbit. Mars activated its deep-crust command bunkers. The Martian Forge, once thought a myth, began pumping out rail cannon parts that shimmer with exotic alloys. Titan's icy crust cracked as buried silos opened to reveal arcane weaponry banned under every treaty that ever existed. We never signed those treaties. Across the solar system, ghost networks came online. Cold storage AIs, awakened after centuries, began rewriting wartime algorithms. Defense protocols, codenamed Carthage and Ashes, triggered without human oversight. The message was clear. This wasn't a war for survival. It was a lesson, and the galaxy would learn. The Valari responded by launching multi-pronged invasions into human-adjacent sectors. They struck colonies in the Perseus Arm and targeted supply depots in the Sagittarius Reach. They thought in lines and volumes, in predictable arcs of movement. Human command didn't respond linearly. We didn't defend where they attacked. We hit where they slept. Within days, coordinated human strikes targeted Valari communications hubs. Hackers based out of Europa blacked out 3 entire Valari sectors for 32 hours. During that silence, Precision drone swarms infiltrated orbital platforms and disabled power grids. Biological warfare was never used, not because we lacked it, but because psychological warfare was cleaner. Every Valari ship attack during that window received the same audio feed, repeating every 47 seconds. This is still restraint. The phrase embedded itself into their command culture like a disease. Some officers refused to engage unless they could confirm they weren't being baited. 100,000 years of warfare hadn't prepared the galaxy for a species that saw patterns as weaknesses. We didn't just build weapons. We turned logistics into weapons. We intercepted food shipments, altered nutrient compositions, and sent them back. The affected soldiers suffered seizures mid-battle. No shots fired. Valari colonies attempted to harden their defenses. They failed. We didn't attack their guns. We attacked their architects. In one instance, human special forces posing as agricultural engineers crippled planetary shields by planting invasive nanolichens that fed on synthetic capacitor coatings. By the time the shields failed, there was no need to invade. The colony surrendered without a single drop of blood spilled. At this stage, the Council began to worry, not because they were losing ships, but because they were losing control. Other species began to question the narrative. Why had humans, outnumbered and outgunned, managed to resist the Council's full strength for weeks? Why were losses mounting in systems never even declared contested? Why did their predictive models keep failing? The answer was simple. Humanity didn't believe in playing fair. They had ancient doctrines, rules of engagement, sacred codes, cultural warfare boundaries. We saw those as vulnerabilities. One by one, we shattered them. The idea of fighting during stellar alignment ceremonies? Gone. The tradition of avoiding planetary temples? Irrelevant. We weren't fighting for honor. We were fighting for memory. We wanted them to remember why provoking a Deathworld species was suicide. They tried deploying their elites. The Triarch Guard, undefeated for 5,000 years, entered the fray. Humanity didn't engage them in open battle. Instead, we introduced interference frequencies to their psychometric armor. The armor turned against them, interpreting allies as hostiles. Within 12 minutes, the Guard tore itself apart. Still, we hadn't unleashed our full strength. Humanity had black projects hidden beneath oceans, embedded in asteroids, buried under mountain ranges and forgotten star systems. Protocols designed not for conquest, but for extinction. We hadn't activated them yet. The Council had mistaken our efficiency for desperation. They thought our restraint was inability. It wasn't. Then came the strike that changed everything. We didn't hit a fleet. We hit infrastructure. 6 simultaneous strikes on Valari industrial worlds. Not with weapons, but with code. AI viruses that rewrote safety parameters on reactor cores. The result, catastrophic meltdowns. The Valari Dominion, wounded and desperate, did what they had never done in over 5 millennia of dominance. They asked for help, not from the Council, but from the mercenary guilds, from fringe warlords, from exiled militaries long thought broken. They opened contracts with unrestricted clauses and limitless funding. Anything to slow the human onslaught, anything to stop the collapse. The mercenaries came in droves. The cruel clans, known for scorched earth tactics, joined the fight. The Glissari Void Knights, whose armor could walk through solar flares, deployed en masse. Even the SSYN Syndicate, a species erased from history records for crimes against sentience, accepted the Valari call. They were offered amnesty and revenge, but none of them were prepared for what they faced. The first mercenary fleet reached Sector Delta IV. They never made it to orbit. A satellite net, passive and unpowered, detonated with chain-link kinetic bursts. Not plasma, not laser, just raw tungsten, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. The fleet shattered. Survivors screamed over open comms. There are no patterns, no signatures, just death, and then silence. The cruel switch tactics. Ground war. They descended on Emer 7, a terraformed mining colony. They brought shock troops bred for gravity and acid. What they found was a dead zone of electromagnetic interference, blinding their optics, disabling their weapons. Human operators in adaptive armor used obsolete firearms, slug throwers, immune to jamming. The crew lost a battle to a force using technology 4 centuries old. The footage broke morale across 10 mercenary clans. The Glissari fared no better. Their pride and honor codes made them predictable. Human command baited them with false distress signals. When they arrived, orbital mirrors redirected stellar light to burn them in space. Survivors fled into an asteroid belt where hidden kinetic mines detonated one after another. Not a single human ship had moved. Across the galaxy, something shifted. The narrative flipped. Humans were no longer seen as a defiant underdog. They were a force that broke conventional warfare by refusing to follow its rules. Their strategy wasn't overwhelm. It was to exhaust, confuse, and dismantle. They did not invade planets. They corrupted them. They did not disable fleets. They turned them inward, forcing retreat through fear, isolation, and psychological bleed. Council leadership panicked. They proposed emergency measures, mass conscription, rationed FTL usage, suspension of interstellar law. But it was already too late. The humans had infiltrated Council protocol layers. A speech by the Council pre-march was hijacked mid-transmission and overwritten with a simple statement. This is not the height of our capability. This is still mercy. Entire member species began distancing themselves from the war effort. Trade partners went dark. Alliances fractured. Border systems refused deployment orders. The fear wasn't defeat. It was of becoming targets. Humanity wasn't annihilating populations, but they were breaking infrastructures so deeply that civilizations regressed. Still, Valari leadership pressed forward. They authorized Operation Titan's Wrath, a doomsday contingency. A chain of world killer weapons, stellar destabilizers, would be fired into fringe human systems, not to win, but to scorch Earth's legacy. The launch commenced. 5 weapons fired. For never reached their destinations. One reached its target. It was intercepted by a ship that didn't exist in any council registry. The vessel had no name, no drive signature, no life signs. It was human by design, but built using materials unknown to galactic science. The weapon vanished mid-jump. Analysis suggested it was absorbed, not destroyed. The message following this event was broadcast across quantum entanglement channels. The war ends when you stop, not before. The Council interpreted this as an escalation. They approved full-spectrum warfare. Every fleet mobilized. Every reserve activated. Over 8,000 ships began movement toward Sol. It was the largest armada in recorded history. The goal was not victory. It was extermination. Humanity responded by vanishing. No fleets. No signals. No communications. Earth and her colonies went silent. Probes sent into human space vanished. Long-range scans returned corrupted. The Council fleets advanced, unsure, unnerved. Some believed the humans had finally collapsed. Others feared a trap. They arrived at Sol to find it empty. No orbital stations. No defense grids. No planetary activity. Earth was silent. Mars cold. Titan quiet. For 3 full cycles, the Council maintained orbital presence, searching for any trace of opposition. Then came the collapse. It started with command vessels losing AI cohesion. Subroutines looped. Navigation glitched. Weapon systems misfired. Entire battle groups collided in slow-motion chaos. What they didn't realize, what they couldn't have known, was that every AI in their systems had been compromised months earlier, not by viruses, not by malware, but by suggestion. Human agents had inserted cultural anomalies into galactic code, a melody, a sequence of numbers, a children's rhyme from Earth's forgotten languages. These anomalies activated dormant logic branches inside Council systems. A linguistic virus. Nothing transmitted. Nothing detectable. Just code that rewrote thought. It was a first war fought by poetry. As ships tore themselves apart, the skies of Sol lit up. Humanity returned not in formation, but in eruption. They emerged from the sun's shadow. From FDL micropockets hidden in quantum blind zones. From folded space nested inside moons. Their ships bore no insignias. No colors. Just mat holes and weapon arrays that hummed with frequencies that erased targeting locks. They didn't fire first. The Council did. And then the humans responded with the thing no one expected, non-lethal force. They disarmed ships with electromagnetic pulses targeted, so precisely that onboard systems melted without damaging hulls. They isolated command crew with teleport suppression nets. They beamed into hangars with zero-pressure suits and placed explosive charges that simply said don't. For the first time, the galaxy witnessed something worse than annihilation. Absolute control. 100 battleships disabled without death. Thousands of crew captured without resistance. It was a statement of total dominance, executed with calm detachment. Council leadership tried to surrender. The message bounced. Human command did not accept surrender because this was a negotiation. It was a reckoning. With every passing hour, more species withdrew from the Council, not because of human pressure, but because of human precedent. They had shown what it looked like when a Deathworld species took war personally, yet wielded it with discipline. Not vengeance, just precision. The war was no longer about Earth. It was about what kind of future would survive it. Humanity didn't ask for conquest. They asked for silence, for distance, for autonomy. They hadn't declared war. They had responded to it. Valari's Central Command collapsed from within. Mutinies erupted. Officers defected to avoid trials. Warlords abandoned fleets mid-jump. One commander self-destructed his flagship rather than face human capture. The message was clear across every comms band, spoken by dozens of voices in dozens of languages. We chose the wrong enemy.